Welcome everyone. So this is a video for my project Scraps Diary, and if you're a follower of my account on Instagram, then you might know about this already. You might even be one of the people who's doing it yourself. So in this video I'm going to tell you what Scraps Diary is about, explain the sort of the spirit behind it, the guidelines or rules behind it, the essence behind it. I'll also tell you what scraps means to me, and if I've got time, if I can squeeze it in, I might do my next little grid, and you can join in and follow along. Okay, so it's very deliberately called Scraps Diary rather than Scraps Journal. And the word journal is very broad. We can use it in so many different ways, so many different types of journals and interpretations. Diary can also be, the creations of a diary can be very different and varied, but in essence, the word diary tends to be about a record of events. So just like the way you write a diary, keep a diary like daily or monthly, weekly, where you record what has happened. That's the same. That's what a scraps diary is a record, and in this case, is a record of my art practice. So, as it's a record of events or of my practice, it's reflective. So by that, what I mean is what's already passed. So I'm not creating papers to go into it, because that would be like manufacturing your day, so you have something interesting at the end to write about. You don't. You just have your day, good or bad, and interesting or not interesting, and you just write what's happened and your thoughts on it. So this is the same. This records what I have done already. It's just a byproduct of my art practice. Okay, and and just like a diary that you write your events, it's wonderful to look back, or interesting, or nostalgic, or bittersweet, but we can see what has happened, a year from now, years from now. And in the same way, looking back and seeing what your art practice was, because I'm using papers as they are a byproduct of my practice. These are things I have done. So, they are experiments that are created. I'll get into later about what type of papers to use, but I can look back on this and think, oh, I was really exploring, this color, or I got that new stencil that month, or, so on and so on. And I'm not going to remember all of it, because they're not words and they're just visual triggers. I'm not necessarily going to know what in the world that was about. But I actually, and because I look at it back on it, I do actually recall quite a lot of it. It just depends how good your memory is, or how meaningful a certain square is. But I actually know this one, not so much, but I think that's just an underpaper. I know I was trying coffee, some little coffee experiments there. Yeah, a little abstract that I was doing. So that's wonderful. And that's, I started last October, so October 2020. That's November. And, that is only one grid for that month, but other months I've got two there for December. Yeah, so I can see back, and that's really wonderful. And once you have a whole collection of this, I'm just going to absolutely enjoy filling this entire book up and looking back. And on their own, I just think they're just beautiful. Okay, so on to the next thing. Okay, so the rules. Okay, if you go to the @Scraps Diary account, which I created because just wonderful, this thing that was just my own took off, and other people found it inspiring and interesting and useful, and there are plenty of other Instagrammers, mixed media artists who are doing this as well. So I created this account to showcase some of these Scraps Diaries. Okay, now if you look on the bio, you'll see there are rules. And as somebody who's always, been a non-rule follower, I understand if you think, oh, rules. But bear with me, because, I'm 50 now, and I'm no longer a rebellious teenager, and I definitely was. And I've become older and wiser, a little wiser, hopefully. And I have learned that limitations, or let's say parameters, are actually a wonderful thing. And all the freedom in the world isn't necessarily always the best. It can be very overwhelming. It can lack direction. It can lack focus. So, the moderation and all of that. So parameters in this case offer us a few things. So, okay, so the first rule is that it's a grid. So there's only like 2 rules for the format of the scraps diary. And it's a grid. So a grid keeps it uniform, and there is still, there's flexibility in this, in that the size of the grid, this is, as you can see, is a 3x3. It's a little tiny, about 5x5 inch book. I do love tiny books. I love square books. And because it's squares that I'm using, I like the idea of putting it into a square page. But there is flexibility. You can do whatever size you want. You can make a large 8x4 and maybe do 5x7, anything, whatever size grid you want, you can do, as long as it's a grid. So why that uniformity? Well, just like diaries where you have the day by day or week by week, there's that format. And of course, there's all different looking diaries, but in general, you have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you have a day by day, you have a week by week, you have month by month. And there's that idea of, this is a diary, this is record keeping. This isn't just another journal, another art journal. This isn't just a collage or bits of paper. This is a record. So that keeps it nice and uniform. And I'm going to return to that as well, because there's another thing that it does. Okay, so the second rule is to keep it simple. And simple, I've forgotten what's on my bio now, but I believe simple is non-overlapped and unadorned. Okay, so non-overlapped means, as it sounds, you don't overlap the pages, the scraps, sorry. So it is not a collage, okay? Once we start overlapping, then we get into territory which is collaging, which is just no longer becomes uniform. It becomes very creative, and we actually want to not be too creative with this, and I will expand on this in a bit as well. Okay, the second one is that it's unadorned. So again, I put these lines just to sort of give the squarish sort of containment. You can do squares. Some people put lines around each scrap, so there's a little bit of room there for how you want to do it. But again, we're not drawing on top, we're not adding anything extra, all of that. Okay, so what does following these parameters do? Like I said, it keeps it in that diary format. It keeps it, the simplicity of it keeps it stress-free. And that's really important to me in this, because I do a lot of different types of mixed media, and I know a lot of you do as well. We have more than one art journal. We might do actual pieces of art, say on canvas or that sort of thing. We might make our own journals, all sorts of little bits and bobs, altered books. We do so many different things, and some of them are more complex and involved than others. But I really wanted something in all of that, because I've plenty of outlets. I wanted something that was super, about as simple as you can get. And this is what I found was as simple as you can get. It was a grid, pieces of scraps, and nothing else. Literally nothing else. Okay, a stampin', but you know what I'm saying. And that keeps it so, like, when those days when you have nothing left, when you're just tired, when you can't do any art journaling, when you've tidied everything you can tidy, I don't know, you're not feeling, either you're tired or you're stressed or whatever it is, you don't have the time for whatever reason, you can just stick a few pieces of scraps on a page. We can do that, if nothing else. Just like at the end of the day, if you've got nothing left, but you can write 1 or 2 lines about your day, and it's there, and you can, years to come, you can look back on that, and it's similar. So it's super stress free. I'm not asking myself to be creative. I'm not asking myself to come up with anything. It's just there. It's there for me. And that's one of the beauties of parameters, is like, I know what needs to be done. I don't have to think about how to arrange them. It's a grid. I know that. I don't think about what's going to go over what will be, it's there. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a tiny amount of thought. For instance, I may not want all my pinks all together and I might put it over there, but it's so tiny and so simple. With 9 pieces of scraps, it's like a little stress-free puzzle where I can just place them and move them about where I think, oh, that looks nice. I mean, very, very minimal thought, but that's nice to arrange. Arrange things. It's very meditative. Oh, the wonderful sun's come out. I hope that doesn't blow everything out. I'll have to darken that. Okay, but it's lovely to see the sun in this early springtime. Okay, so yes, so the grid and the simplicity, it keeps it as a record of your art practice rather than another art journal. We've got plenty of those. If this inspires you to something else, then take it further. I actually have a project that was inspired by this, and that will be another video. So this gives you that permission to be relaxed, to not come up with anything super interesting, to not think of layers, to not think of arrangement too much. I mean, you don't even have to think of it all. Just put them down wherever they land, and that's great. So that is a gift to oneself. I'm given the gift of doing something which is still in my art practice, which is still, in the artiness and creativity, but totally stress-free. I also believe really strongly in community and supporting one another. And one thing that comes out of being part of a mixed media community is that the inspiration is amazing. It can also be overwhelming. So many things that we want to try, so many techniques and mediums and styles, and just been inspired. I'm very easily, I have no shortage of ideas. My ideas just come, I have too many, and I just can't do them all, let alone, that's just from my own head, let alone when I see other people's work. I can see the tiniest thing, tiniest speck, and that could spark something within me, which is brilliant. I'm very fortunate that I'm never short of inspiration, but that can be super, super, super overwhelming as well. And even if you're not that way, it can still be overwhelming because of how much we see. And that's up to us to sort of pare it down and whatever. But I see these sometimes like a snowball effect on Instagram, where somebody comes up with something and then somebody takes that and go, oh, I was inspired by that and I made it this, and it's even bigger and brighter and more layers, and then somebody, and that's wonderful. But I'm trying to think how to articulate this, but do you see where I'm coming from? It just can get, it's always about more, and that's not always great. And even if we are the ones that are adding more, we may not even be aware that we're just adding too much for ourselves. And paring back, I don't think it's our strength as mixed media artists. We love the techniques, we love the art supplies, but paring back is also, and I think, an important part of just daily living. That moments of silence, moments of pause, moments of simplicity, somewhere, somehow part of our lives. And for me, this is that bit in my art practice. So alongside this being a gift to yourself of doing something really simple and meditative and easy and quick, all of that, and stress-free, I also see it as a gift to one another. So I see it as supporting one another, in that if we don't make Scraps Diary any more than it's asking of us, we also support others to do the same, that nobody feels, because there's a lot of comparison, there's a lot of self-doubt, there's a lot of uncertainty out there in our community, especially with new journalers, of like, oh, I have to do that, I have to, I can't keep it simple, everyone's doing all these extra layers and everyone's doing this and everyone's doing that. And I really want to encourage you to give this to yourself, but also to give it to everyone around you. So when you share Scrap's diary, that you're showing, look, it doesn't have to be any more than this. Whatever it looks like for you. Like I said, a larger one. Some people do circles rather than squares. That's all in the rules. You know, that's all permissible. And that's where a little bit of you can come out, a little bit of extra. But we're not adding extra layers on top. We're not adding any extra marks or any paint or adornment or anything, nothing extra. And I strongly believe that really is important, to add that into your art practice, that simplicity, and to give that to one another. Okay, I don't want to labour the point, but I hope I'm being clear with that, and justifying why it says rules. Okay, so let's talk about what are scraps. So for a lot of us, we know what scraps are. It might be self-evident, but especially if you're new, or even if you've been doing it for a long time, you may not feel like you create scraps in your art practice. So I can only tell you what scraps are to me, my practice, and also perhaps some thoughts I might have that other people do. But I'm sure it's infinite, really. So my main scraps and my main scraps that end up in my diary are, as you can see, I've got here a couple of sheets of paper. This is recycled off-white sugar paper, sometimes known as construction paper. It's super cheap. It's not great quality, but it's actually it's fairly heavy. Like, it's not, I wouldn't say heavy, but it's not super thin. It's not like copy paper. It's a little thicker than that, heavier than that, but it's cheap. It's not, you know, I think school children use it a lot. Okay, so I lay this down on my table, and I would have my journal, and I would, you know, do what I'm doing, and then on this paper would be either you know, brushing, and I'll either brush off, or I'm stamping, and I clean my stamps on the paper. So here's my current one, and you can see I've already taken bits off. I'm not sure where they've ended up, those bits. I could have used it for something else. So this is the sort of thing you normally see in my table until I'm ready to clean, and then I'll have a new sheet. So this is one's become quite busy and quite muddy. So I've cleaned stamps off. I was doing these butterflies, some experiment that I was doing there. The foam stamps tend to get a lot of ink in them, so I tend to clean them off like that. I don't tend to clean paint off, because I tend to put it into the beginning of another journal page, or I might put it on a separate page that will actually you know, take sort of a good amount of, if it's a good amount of paint, and then I could add more on top of that and actually make it into a future collage, you know, some little collage fodder. But sometimes I might just want to see quickly what the color was, or it's just literally just a little bit, and I might just rub it off. But as you can see, I don't have a whole lot of paint. It's mostly stamps, ink, you know, bits and pieces that have come off. Got a little bit of ink there. So I don't know if the sun is shining, you can see that all right. So, you know, it looks like a crazy mess, and it is a crazy mess. It's just, so this is what I call my under paper. Okay, so when I say under papers, this is what I mean. It's just underneath. There's also a second type of under paper, if I can. Second type of under paper is when I paint, and I want to protect the pages underneath, and I'll put one of these pages, as you can see, it's got shape, and I'll spray or paint or whatever, and then end up with that. So in this case, I could take one of these off. In fact, I think I will. Okay, and then what I tend to do with my underpapers is I have a look around, and I see what stands out, what was perhaps the most meaningful, what just looks pretty, just looks interesting to me. So I'm liking this bit here. I've got these complementary colours that have ended up together, so that's really great. I've got this orange stamp and then this bright blue stamp underneath, so I'm really liking that. I'll get to it, so I'm keeping that. I quite like this leaf here. I'm liking this little splash, whatever that is. I think that was some inks that I was trying out. So I don't have any attachment to this. I can't even remember what that was. So I might just choose it because I like it. I like the colour. But I do like to choose ones that I remember, oh, I was trying this out, or that, you know, that has more meaning to me. But just something looks nice is absolutely fine, because it's something that looks nice that I was doing that month, regardless of whether I remember why or not. Okay, so now I can still use the backs. I can use this as under paper for journal page. If it starts to get too small and scrappy and messy, I may just throw it away. But honestly, I can find scraps everywhere. Like this orangey bit here, that's still very useful. Okay, I'll continue with that another time. Okay, so other scraps could be, see, this is more of, I would use as a collage page, or use probably larger bits to it. But if I've been experimenting, then I'll probably have several of these, and I might cut and rip out a little piece of that. That's a whole page so that I was brayering when I was jelly printing. So this is leftover paint, and that's what I mean by I will put this somewhere on a different bit of paper. This is actually A4 and it's white, and I can use this as a collage background, or I can add stenciling or stamping on top of that. But again, if I have, I could either take a corner of that, or I could, like I said, if I have several pages, you know, I might use it. But like I said, most of these I will keep, but it is an option. That's a jelly print that either didn't work, or I think I was just doing backgrounds. So that's left over. These aren't actually for this month, so I'm not going to include it this month. I will include that one. This is more the beginning of the month. So this is jelly printing that I did. Yeah, so that shows you that I was doing that month, and I'll take a little square of that. That's, I don't know what that is. It's just some leftover paint. So little bits of paper, they're great for just rubbing off. So that's colour there. This was jelly printing that I was experimenting. I was doing botanicals, and then I liked just what came off the plate to clean it off. So that was close to the end of the month. This was some stenciling that I was doing on black with white, just to try that out. I might use that. And so not only am I taking out what is interesting and as a record of my art practice, but it's also about finding beauty in what looks ugly. You know, a lot of people might look at this and just go, well, that's just my underpaper. It's just throw it away. It's just all bits of paint and stamp. It's just an utter mess. But when we look closely, we can find beauty, and sometimes it's by abstracting it, you know. Oh, I can't really do it with my hands, you can't see, but it's taking little corners of something. It's like sometimes little tiny pieces of abstract art. You know, you look at like that little piece there, this little abstract piece, whereas all around it might have been a mess. This was, I know, a mess all around. I know this was a mess all around it, but you take it just in the right spot, it becomes beautiful in itself. So that's a lovely practice as well, of seeing beauty in what is usually seen as ugly or waste. So underpapers, and there's two types of underpapers, you know, protective papers, paper on the down, brush off papers, experiments you've been doing on jelly prints, failed experiments as well. Remember, we're finding beauty in the ugly, so there's never, to me, such a thing as a failed experiment. The failure is in not experimenting. So, and any scientist or anyone worth a salt will tell you that it's trying and trying and trying again. So anytime you're afraid to try a jelly print or try something and you think, oh, what if it doesn't turn out, there's always something you could do with those papers. There is collaging, there is scraps diary, you know, there is all sorts. You know, you break things down, you break what was ugly down. I mean, this wasn't ugly, but you know, you break something that hasn't, this didn't really quite work, but as a little square piece, this could be super interesting. and at the very least you've learned something. You've learned what not to do next time. So there's no such thing as failure. And for scraps, definitely not. There's always something you can do with them. Of course, it does depend on what your art practice is, but if you're a mixed media artist, if you're an art journaler, there's always a place to find a home. There's always a home for a scrap. That's my philosophy. So you can see that there's a mixture of complete organic art practice, accidents, not accidents, but you know, it comes organically from wiping off stamps and that sort of thing. And then there can be more specific and beautiful papers because of experiments that you did, even ones that worked out beautifully, because if that's what you were trying that month, and that is a record of your art practice. But it's lovely to have both. It's lovely to have to give yourself that gift, give yourself that permission of not having to only include beautiful things. I know in one of my months, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but I was just doing a lot, and either I was just not getting around to changing my underpaper, or I was just doing so much. I think that's what it was. I was just doing so many things that by the time I got around to changing my underpaper, it had gotten so muddy. And I love it. I love that this is a true representation of that month. It's a true record of events. Early February this month, this is what happened, and I now have that visceral reaction and that memory of, oh, I was doing so much that month. There was like 3 journals going on, and I was trying to keep up with challenges and all sorts, and it's so muddy. But look at that. I think this one is just beautiful. It's just a little mini artwork, abstract art there. And that one is, you know, and it doesn't matter if they're ugly, but if you're taking them on their own like that, if you'd seen the whole underpaper, it would not been very pleasing to the eye. But on their own, they have story. And that's what it's about. It's about recording your story. And to do that, you have to give yourself permission to record the truth. You know, if you write in your diary, today was great, when really you had an awful day, I mean, I don't know who that benefits. And it's the same thing, you know, record the truth. And the truth is what you did, what didn't turn out well, what your underpapers look like. You know, this month, a little more focused. And that's a little bit of leftover of that underpaper, but you can see the shift that now I'm doing very specific things. I was trying out specific, and they just come out, and they're so pretty, these papers. I still think some of these are pretty as well, but I mean, they were pretty on their own. But I love that. I love that is what happened. You know, that's getting quite messy. Oh, I've done the butterfly, I realised. That's why I tore my underpaper. So that's getting quite messy, but it was a true representation of what was going on. Okay. And I find it can be really encouraging to yourself when you haven't found worth in what you've done, that realise that it has a second life. It has a chance as a second or even third life, that you can tear it up and make it into something else, like a scraps diary. So let's get on with making my next one. That's my last one, and I'm going to, so as I said, I would choose, so this is 9, so I'm going to choose 9 pieces. I really like that one, really like that one. Oh, I was trying out my pastels, so I've got to have that one. And I used one from the previous just to get a rough idea of the size. You know, there's nothing exact about this, and who doesn't love ripping papers? If you don't do this, please do it. Please rip paper. That's so satisfying. So I get the rough size that I want. Okay, and then I can work from that as well. So I want this leaf. Do I want the whole leaf, or do I just want, I kind of like the idea of a suggestion of the leaf rather than the whole leaf. I'm going to go there. Okay, I think I'm going to speed up this part just so the video is not too long, but please don't be fooled by that energy. Understand that this is something that I don't rush. It's very fast just by, you know, the project itself. It doesn't take long to record my day, my month. Usually I do it by weeks at the moment, but it just depends how much I have. I might do one a week, might only do one for the month. It's just whatever you have. It's your record, and that's what's nice about it. It's a diary that is undated, so you can do as many or as little as you like. So I will speed it up, but yeah, to keep in mind that energy, that it's a quiet, meditative, stress-free activity. Okay, so I will throw most of this out, but if there's anything interesting left, I might still keep it. Okay, so I have my 9 pieces, and now I just find where I might want them. I tend to, not want all one color together, possibly. If there is one sharp edge, I keep it on the side. Like this, like that. Oh, see, that's fine. I barely thought about that. Maybe, oh, that leaf in the middle, I think I like that. And there's no pattern there, and just flat colour there, so swap that round. That's it. And it's just playful. It's just, there we are. Okay, it's just a glue stick. I tend to start with the middle, so then it all ends up roughly where I want it to end up. Okay, there we are. And then screw the lines. And I'll date it with still in March. I only put the month. And there we are.